Come on, baby. Come on. Yep. Good? We are good. Yes.
All right.
So let me just take care of this page. There. And the rest I'll do in the show. So we're live. We're going to roll out in just a few minutes, or like in a couple of minutes. Let me just pull it up. Yeah, we got on Facebook. Yeah, that's good. That's good. It was a rough week for me, man. But it was beautiful. It was elevating, escalating. I vomited. I cried. What else happened? My higher self and my divine feminine came into me. I saw a whale going across the ocean, or we did. God, all kinds of stuff happened. And then I had a show with Duncan Alexander the next day after the vomiting and crying. And I'm telling him about vomiting and crying. He starts laughing. He goes, "Oh my God, I did the same thing last night."
Really?
Yeah, so that kind of helped me formulate. Morgan and I talked a lot, and because we really respect your intel, but she gave me some pretty good questions to ask through our conversation.
Okay.
Okay, let's see here. Let me just pull this up. Oop, wrong
Did
one.
you think we're eating shadow though all week? Is that what you said before?
I ate the biggest shadow I've ever eaten before. It's called the what would it be called? Well, there was two. There was one, as it led into it, it was actually the morning. I woke up one morning and it was brother to brother, man to man. It was like making peace, accepting every man. And then I got all this whole montage of past lives. And then there's one scene of a father and a son. I don't know which one I was, reconciling. And I just started crying.
Wow.
Then my body starts convulsing. The next morning, it was something else, had to do with performance of the masculine, sexual trauma, wound. And then it ended up that night vomiting, crying. And the next day, this incredible expansion with Morgan holding space, sitting on the beach, crying and laughing uncontrollably for like 20 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah, it was nice once you went through it. Uh-oh, where's it at? Is it on there? Oh yeah, there it is. Oh wow, there's already 51 people in the house. Cool.
Hello.
Yeah, hello everybody. Let me just say hi to everybody. Morgan reminds me identity of the penis. That's what I was going to say, but I got off track. So I had to let my penis go.
Totally though, Morgan. Yeah, like the image of the masculine, image of the masculine power, the facade. So like what we're experiencing today, right now, actually, we're in a full moon, you know that, Scorpio full moon. But it's totally this merging of Pluto and Neptune timelines of the illusion of the facade of power, which is Neptunian. It's within our psyche though. That the image of power and what that means and the superficiality of that image, and then exactly I actually experienced very similarly. It was just like, even in my dream space, was a rekindling of a wound, and I just cried, and it was masculine, and it was just like, so it was like this deep surrender of power and control, which is Saturn, Pluto, and Neptune. So it's this deep surrender into, out of the facade, but into a more deepening of our masculine. And so what I was going to even touch on, I'll keep that for later, and I'll well, just kind of what we were talking about, you know, like I kind of inch forward, you know, as I analyze the collective through astrology, but also my personal experience. You know, we're inching always in our interviews towards what it is. and even you, because we were talking about that struggle, that polarity between the masculine, and that was totally your shift though too. It was masculine confronting masculine to go on
Yes.
a new journey, but like a reconciliatory
Yes.
power of opposites combining somehow. And so I kind of saw what that was, you know, through my own understanding of archetypes and stuff. So I kind of like needed to like just stream that through so I could understand it more clearly. But I think I can save that. But we have an hour and a half today, right?
Yes. As long as you want to go, we're good. Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever you want to do. Yeah. No, I don't. I think. Okay. So there's a few things here, but back to the. Okay. So we'll start with that one. The deepest masculine wound regarding old patterns around sexuality, which to me, what happened to me was it was the micro on the very individual scale. I'm in this relationship. I have these old patterns and stuff, but it's not about the patterns. It's about the wound beneath it. And it got to the point where I had to say, I was in the lot next door in the middle of the night, vomited, cried, went out to the lot. I said, I didn't say F you universe. I just said, what the hell's going on? Why does this have to be taken away from me? And what's left at the deepest level? And I just said, I'm done. I'm done. Okay. I'm done with that. Okay. So I'm going to let go of it. I actually went upstairs and had an incredible experience we shared, which to your point was kind of like I let that go. And then there was like this, the merging of the polarities, the power that the false masculine has been in touch with and says, wow, that's real, but it got distorted. You let all that go. I know that power can come with me. And then what you said, that higher power, that more powerful sacred sexual energy or something happened. And it was absolutely beautiful. It was just hell, the highway to hell in the process. That's yeah. So the deepest masculine wound showing up in old patterns around sexuality, which we all know. We can all talk about it. You know, men have big trucks, they have big toys, they have big this, they have big that, penile extensions, you know, whatever you want to call it.
But it wasn't just men though.
Exactly. Well, that's yeah.
So domineering and trying to assert dominance over me because like I seem very docile. Like if you were to meet me, like I'm kind of just 0 pointed the fuck out. Like I know I'm like 5'10" and a half. I'm broad shoulders, but I'm very docile. And so people would assume that like I'm weak, I'm not intelligent. And so they all week they just fucking walked all over me. And I just watched them because I knew what was going on in the collective. And so it's just really that people are unearthing this dominance, which is assumed power, right? Like you're dominating other people and that's how you get your glory, but it's really not that. It's coming out so that we can take a better look at it and then become more assertive and like lay a new foundation for just getting our needs met. You know, it's not about overstepping people's boundaries.
Yes.
You have nothing to do with me. Like your boundary is way the fuck over there. I have nothing to do with you. Your behavior is way
and then the overstepping of the boundaries, energetically, like it's an infringement on your space. and then what do you do with that when that happens? And like you said, like a new way of having your needs met. So it's like, how do you do this? And I think that's what I was getting from you.
Yeah, I just had to hold space for them because for me, if I were to meet them at their level, because I know this part of my shadow, if I were to meet them at their level, I would destroy them in a fucking second.
Yeah.
If I would meet them at that level of them trying to overpower me, like things in my past, I go to jail for shit like that. Like people like
you and me both.
with shit like that, like I I destroy you, I wreck something for me, like it doesn't go well. So I just have to allow them. But I can see how that then creates resistance for me being assertive. And so I'm trying to negotiate that within myself, because
Yeah.
I will destroy you. You know, this body of knowledge, though, too, this body of work, this isn't for the light of heart, you know? And so, like, my knowledge would destroy you, but how do I want to choose to use my power? How do I want to wield this sword, you know? And so it's like, well, where is my power then, right?
Yeah.
Like, where am I on the spectrum if we're no longer going to be dominating,
Yeah.
or the part of our psyche just goes into complete 0 point, you know?
Yeah.
And so
You're,
instead of being
yeah.
over controlling, it's coming through into a depth, a deepening of reasoning for allowing people their shit, you know?
Yeah, I like that what you said. Because God, that's exactly spot on for me, and I think that's what we're seeing. And you're right, it is men and women. It's like, okay, I know that power. Like I said before, use the word assertiveness. So it's like you can stay in that 0 point and observe, but we're not. I don't want to say we're not meant to. We're just meant to project that power from the 0 point. So it's a new way. Instead of dominance or control, it's assertiveness. It's using that power to expand yourself and therefore expand the field around you. And it's a little bit mind-boggling. One of the things too was the shadow archetypes. That's related. The shadow archetypes of the feminine appear to be quite loud at the moment.
Yeah.
Excess wounded feminine energy or excess wounded masculine presenting.
Yeah, I think I touched on that too, about how specific archetypes are cloaking our masculine. And so there's like the dark mother, the dark feminine, which comes online as a yang energy, is cloaking the masculine, you know, because she's superior to people. People can't attune to her. You can't feel into that. That's mysterious, that's dark, that's chaotic. And that's where their power is, you know? It's like being untouchable, but they don't get to touch grace either. They don't get to touch their feminine either. They don't get to come into the deepening, you know? And so that's the polarity of Pluto, is the deepening instead of being over top with the power, is really trust. Our trust is deepening. I feel like our trust is going further into the depths of our being, because we're fucking powerful. And I made a post about 0 point with Pluto feels like we are the deep state. Like it's so intense and powerful, like it. And so then fear what? If we are this intensity as well, which is the polarity, you know, of the Christed ones, if we are all the archetypal spread and we have this intensity too, fear what then? Fear what? What are we afraid of?
Which then throws the energy of the power back, and the creative force back onto us, and like going, oh shit, I've got this much power. I only know how to exert it from this old paradigm of, you know, like you're talking about. If you want to deal, if I need to come down to that level, I'll punch you right between the energetic eyes. That's not going to work for anybody. So like, wow, we got this power. How do we assert it? And you're right. It is requiring a deep level of trust, even with the highest light, which is an easy thing to kind of navigate. But more importantly, that abyss, that unknown, that darkness, that holy darkness. Like you got to go into this space of nothingness and come out, you know, like a bazooka.
Yep, and that's really what I wrote on, because I could see what it was, you know, as we have the polarity of the Christ being Lucifer, and neither one of them being good or bad. I think that Lucifer is part of the Dark Knight, where we have to go deep asleep right before Lucifer, the morning star, or, you know, the light bringer. We go deep into a deep slumber in the dark night before we can actually fully awaken. But what's the polarity of that Lucifer archetype is nihilism, I think, is this existential nightmare of like, I don't have any power, right? And so it's about divine will and divine order, but also, do I have power, willpower, conscious choice of what I put my masculine energy into? And so it's this existential crisis of, now with Chiron and Aries, I exist in the world, and now I have a weapon, and how do I choose to wield it? But it's a deeper reasoning than that. It's the fear of existing, because there's that polarity of either I have all fucking responsibility for my behavior because I'm conscious, right? And I'm aware of my existence here, or I'm in a deep surrender, which is kind of a slumber too, though. So it's the energy of both of those at the same time, because we know that there's an essence of both of those after we awaken, but it's about, where is our power exactly?
Yeah.
What are we in control of?
I love this comment by David Gagnon. He says, I heard one thing, Lucifer hold the void for lost soul. I don't know what that means, but it sounds very good. The other thing that we were discussing, and we was like, okay, there's been this huge leap, we're talking energy, in the availability of divine union expansion. So it's kind of like, okay, the masculine finally got up to this area of equality by giving up the position of power in the old paradigm. So therefore, it creates this pressure. The feminine starts to go up, and you can only go up, as we've learned so eloquently through you, by going through the shadows. So maybe that's why these feminine wounds are coming out, because these are wounds they couldn't see until the masculine came up and their awareness expanded, which shines light on the shadow, and then you got to deal with that, and that's why we vomit and cry and all that stuff.
It's interesting though, because the stomach, I'm having stomach issues too. The stomach symbolically is where we digest thought into liquid. So we're digesting thought or form into essence or into emotion. And so I think it becomes a more embodied truth there. If we're bringing the masculine fully down from the intellect, right? And people tell me this all the fucking time. They're like, you're so ungrounded, you're so intelligent, you're just stuck in your intellect. And I'm like, I don't know anything else. And so like now I feel like it's metabolizing further into this groundwork of, you know, the new future, the new framework, you know, Uranus and Taurus. So I feel like we are metabolizing the essence of the masculine into the depths of our being, out of our intellect, or the superior facade, right?
Yeah.
I just wish that like mainstream would kind of click on, and like, wouldn't that be amazing to watch them evolve? Like just die like 10 like
the archetype, right?
Well, but also the figureheads, you know, just be amazing to watch them actually evolve, like lose their shit and then have a rebirth. Like, you don't get to see that. I think you will, though. I think that we'll have reality shows and like.
Well, and that's my next thing here is, are we having that? Although it's not maybe on the global stage. So if we notice in our daily experience recently, external archetypes, and we check and check and check, cannot find them in ourselves. What is that? Are we watching? Are we simply watching the archetypes collapse? Or is this, because it's like, okay, so it presents itself, okay, what's in it me that I'm not seeing? You check, you check, you check. You check the polarity. Are we just watching them collapse before our eyes? I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, so you've done this. Well, you've done this work, and say you're seeing the wounded masculine appearing in front of you, the wounded feminine appearing in front of you. You're going, okay, wait a minute. I check. I'm not finding. I check the polarity. You know, what's going on here? I don't know. Is it the Great Divide showing us a further distance in the spectrum because we have a higher awareness?
I think, you know, even because I've already digested the dominant feminine masculine, you know, I still think that there's something for me in it, you know, at a different layer. So like I can't assert gently. Like I will fucking destroy her, you know. So I can't assert gently. Like I will destroy her. And it's just the power of my communication style. Like it's just the depth at which I and the power that I bring. And so there's still something in there for me, even as I'm watching something that I have already, you know, worked through. It's still like, okay, so why can't I just assert that this isn't, you know, this isn't proper behavior, or that I feel uncomfortable.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Like, yeah. So I think that's the assertion that the masculine would love to be able to be qualified for, is just simply feeling, you know, subjective and it being okay and not being seen as being weak. And so like being an authority because we can feel our emotions and like we can assert our emotions. And I feel like that may be the new dominance. I mean, that's what I'm hearing and feeling through the airwaves as I'm speaking, which is a lot of how I digest information. But yeah, that can be, you know, just placing our truths gently. That's fucking powerful shit, dude, because I'm like trying to configure my energy so I don't destroy, but I have to relate and I have to respond. So it's like, God, I'm like, how do I not assert dominance and how do I not destroy people? And so eventually I was like able to manipulate it enough so I could just place it gently and it could just be fact. And then it was like, of course I will do whatever you ask of me. And then it was like, okay, but I can't do this when people are here and I can feel their everything and I just need to be clarity for them, right? And so I think it's about holding the density in our field though too, because if you can't hold the shadow in your field, right, it becomes really troublesome.
And so if I understand you, in order to hold the shadow in our field and remain balanced or 0 point, we have to, it could be the new power or dominance, if that's the word, to emotionally respond, be true to our emotions, and emotionally respond versus emotionally react.
Well, yeah, because if there's no trigger there for you and you don't really have to assert dominance, there's nothing like, there's no construct. And that's the difference, I think, is because once you come out of the construct of reality, the construct, right? That's the matrix that everyone has. And so the ego is constructed of a defense mechanism. Each one of the archetypes are as well. They don't want to die. They don't want to be annihilated. And so they want to be christened, but they have to let go. They have to die. So that's, but so there's nothing within our field that says that I have to exist, like that I can't just exist while I allow this person. So there's nothing that I'm trying to explain that. So I don't have anything to defend.
Yes.
I don't have anything to defend. I don't have to exist in a different framework for her. I don't have anything to defend. I just get to exist clear consciously. And so there's nothing for me to project onto her either. So there's nothing to combat because I've already healed that. And so then I just get to hold space for her. And then she gets to be the dominant one, the bigger one, and the greater version of, you know, more powerful, whatever she fucking wants to configure for herself that she's working through. But
wow, that's
so, but yeah, so that's true power, is surrender, which we've done on many, many, many layers, and love. And so we're confronting power, control, and the illusion of grandeur. And so
yeah, yeah,
power and control, well, if you're in 0 point, you're not controlling shit, first of all. Like, there's nothing to control. Like,
yeah,
you know, you're in full conscious surrender. So, and what's more powerful than that? And so I think, yeah, it's really just bringing this shit down to size, I think, slowly. It's
totally.
so amazing, right?
And it feels like there's a buildup, you know, watching people and in my own space, and it's like a restlessness of there's like, well, you're really saying it. There's something I need to do. I know there's something I need to do, you know, or the flip side being something's going on, you know, like, you know, but it's almost like the two feelings of like, there's something I need to do. I know there's something I need to do. But you're in that 0 point, and you like you said, you can't be in that 0 point if you know, put that force out there. And then at the same time, you're seeing this, maybe it's the collective energy available that's happening and occurring. That something is like very imminent. Like, I don't know, like the balancing of those two genders being the ultimate polarities, and everything that stems from it has hit a new level, and it's creating all this upward force through the shadows to a higher elevation and awareness and understanding.
So I've been seeing this coming online a lot more, and I feel like what you're communicating and articulating very well is this energy of chaos, which is Uranus. And so that energy still is in your masculine, but it's due to Dark Mother, because it feels very uncomfortable to be in Dark Mother's presence. So if your mom had this archetype, then there's nothing that you could do to please her. You couldn't attune to your environment. You didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
And so that's the energy of I have to do something, something's going to happen. And
Yes.
so, yeah. And so she won't attune to you. She's not going to meet your needs. And so I need to do something to meet her needs. And so this is really coming more online for people, and at their own rate, because it started a long time ago, maybe 3 weeks, and now people are like, nervous chaos. And I'm like, yep, that's what that is the shadow masculine, which is a superimposed archetype who claims to be masculine because it's a yang energy, but it's also dark and dismissive and frustrating. And so there's just something that wants to connect.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't connect. And so I will send you a specific meditation for Dark Mother, so that once you hold her frequency in your field, though, you're like, this energy kind of just shifts for you, because then it's like, oh, it's like, it's okay. So you're 0 pointing her out so that you no longer are distancing yourself. So once you can hold her energy in her field, you're like stabilizing with her and transmuting her power over your specific archetype, which is usually the teenager and the child, which is which creates a mistrust in your environment.
Yes.
With you and other people to you. Like, there's something wrong, I'm on edge, I can't meet you where you're at. And so
that's really good, you know. I love that explanation. So, you know, I've only known, let's just say I'm using myself, but I've only known the polarity of the Dark Mother, which is the one looking at the Dark Mother and contending with the Dark Mother. So you're saying basically, like through this meditation or whatever method, to pull in the Dark Mother or become the Dark Mother and 0 point the Dark Mother, which is really bringing those two polarities into reunification,
Mhm.
which must be an extremely powerful elevation behind it, because that's a very deep abyss that you're speaking of. You know, that's a very big expanse, even in between the one side of the abyss to the other. There's a lot of territory in there that has a lot of repercussions, as you're talking about, with our other relationships and so on and so on. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
that's some deep juju, man.
Yeah. Yeah, because once you can just be with her, then like my experience is like that you get to be with other people and their archetypes and hold space for that and not react and see what their truth is in there, you know. So
Here's
it becomes impersonal to you and impersonal to them, and you know that's a big point of power with this process is depersonalization.
absolutely, absolutely, it is. That's a key point, and that's also, I think, a good um, sign or barometer of, you know, if you're not taking it personal, you're doing pretty good. You know, you can start to get to that point where you're not seeing it. You're seeing it from that spiritual scientific that we talked about last week that you have and Morgan has. Here's a great comment, and we're all here to learn, because I think I have a lot of respect for Susan Marie. But there's a point in here I want to bring out and see what you have to say about it. She says, what we are feeling is that now we can come away from the stories, which feels like chaos. We no longer need to create more stories to delay this, i.e. the mother, polarity, it's all source is the best performance of us all. LOL. Shadow masculine. There is no darkness in truth. 0. Blah, blah. So my point here is on the chaos. So I can see the part about we don't need to create more chaos, but there's still chaos being presented, which to me seems to be some type of doorway into the shadow of self introspection and therefore the road to growth.
Yeah, especially today because it's a Scorpio full moon, like it's an intensity, right? Like it's an intensity and it's deep and it's penetrating and it's intense. And um so if you still experience fear, then there could be a lot of anxiety with that intensity. You could not want to confront that intensity and that power within yourself. And so that could be this as well, like holy shit, heightened anxiety because there's so much intensity. But once you peel back the layers, you know, and confront these intense archetypes and their function within your system, it's not frightening anymore. So you can be with intensity, hold your own intensity, right? And I think that's a big part of what you're unearthing too, as you're dealing with the penis. Like, I have this fucking intensity.
Yeah, I do. That's right.
This is a lot of energy that I have to fucking hold on to now. And like, so now it's like, what am I gonna do with all this intensity? And
Bingo.
like, but holding on to it is the most important part. Is like, I'm proud of this fucking intensity. And so there's so many aspects of masculinity that we want to shy away from, and you know, but it's this intensity that can cause anxiety. Like,
Yeah.
well, instead of intensity, I have anxiety about intensity, or you know, and so a lot of stuff can go into that. It's just frequency, though, you know, especially when we unearth all this shit. Then it's not.
That was actually an intense, energetic explanation. Because all I could think was, intensity and multiplicity. You know,
Yeah.
that's another thing. We were talking yesterday. She said, and it doesn't even matter the context. She said it's a multi-dimensional thing now too, which throws in. So everything has got a multi-dimensional expanded awareness, and so that creates, you know, more intensity because like everything is a window to the soul. You know, every bit of it, and where it used to just be the emotion of anger, the emotion of power, the emotion of control, unconscious, then becomes conscious. I'm like, oh my God, I was an asshole. What do I do? All those things that were kind of like at a human level only. Now you have all these other perspectives coming in. It's like a big, you know, emotional orgy or something. I don't know, you know, because on the higher self or whatever, a higher aspect could say, hold space, maintain your balance, make new choices, da, da, da. But there's this other part of us that's down at the ground level that's going, hey, like me the other night, you know, I got out there and I shook my fist. I said, what the hell's going on here, man? You know, we've had these conversations before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's so much in that, in those emotions that are coming out, and being able to be with those emotions instead of allow them to remain in the shadow and be regressed, I think is the biggest part. It's about bringing that intensity online, because that intensity is actually very useful.
Yes.
It's, you're trying to wield a sword, or when you're trying to fucking accomplish something, or when you're building success, or when you're doing many things, holding that frequency and that intensity. You know, it's different for everyone because of their astrology chart. And so wherever the full moon is placed for you is that archetypal complex that's interwoven into your psyche, and it's really how you're filtering this energy through and what you're bringing online, you know, with this Pluto energy. And so that's where you're going to hold this intensity, is because that's your specific design for how you're going to bring Pluto through.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me, because the intensity is very much felt. And it's like, okay, so how do I direct this in a different, I can't do it the old way. How do I direct it? Because I can feel the power of it. It's a useful power. There's nothing wrong with the intensity. I mean, if you take that example I gave you, I had this huge, what you might want to call it, a dark night of the soul, a dark moment of the soul. I don't really look at it that way. It was just like trying to find the shadow, or trying to do something with the intensity of the shadow experience, and with my heart, try to project it up into transformation and expansion. And I don't know, it's for me, and I think there's a lot of people out there like that. We have to hit our knees. It seems like we've had to hit our knees and really get down and dirty with ourselves and say, I don't freaking know what's going on here. This is what I'm experiencing. Help me. What's going on? Screaming at the universe, screaming at the team, whatever. But help me, you know, which is really me talking to me, I guess. And then the higher aspect maybe comes in due to the intensity of my prayer, you know, if you want to put it that way. I don't know. I'll tell you one thing, it's getting very interesting, isn't it?
Well, I think we're going to learn a lot more about how to assert the masculine in the upcoming months, because this is going to not stop necessarily. So it's not going to stop, because the essence of this density, this intensity, is being held at the south node of the moon. And so the whole eclipse cycle is activating this power potential. And so it's not going away. It's really leading us into, you know, what we're supposed to do, you know. But for everyone it's very different, because of your chart is your specialized design. And so
well, I really have to stay with you, you know, and because you've got such a broad range of intricate knowledge, and I can now, like I told you a couple of shows ago, I can follow you.
Took you a while.
But you know, no, I can't. I mean, it's like there's so much to it. It's like a big blueprint, you know. It's like a big, like you said, it's like a template or a schematic. And so I go back and I simplify it again, and I for myself, I can speak for myself, and I can say this with what I observed out there, and there's nothing wrong with it. No judgment on me or anyone else. But we're like, okay, we're going to balance, and we're going to have divine union, and then everything is going to go into this just perfect calm and light. And no, I saw clearly, like I've never seen before, through the discussions with Morgan over the years, all coming back to me over the last couple of days. It was we talked, and that balance coming in, and like you said, it never ends. So it only makes sense. The two primary polarities, the masculine comes up, pushes the other side up, and it doesn't matter if it's masculine, feminine, positive, negative. dark light, it pushes the other side up. And the other side can only go up through the shadow. So in a sense, it's not going to end. And every time we think we can stand pat, the pressure is getting so strong, the universe is going to back you in a corner if you don't continue to do the work. I guess it's what I'm getting from it. So we become shadow workers instead of light workers, as we discussed.
Yeah, because if you can't hold density in your field, you're going to escape. You're going to escape realism. You're going to escape challenges. You're going to escape all forms of reality. You're going to use drugs. You're going to, you know, live in a van down by the river. You're going to, you know. So it's about confronting ourselves objectively and confronting the little masculine that doesn't want to necessarily grow up. So it's a big part of Peter Pan syndrome, as far as not being maturely evolved in our masculinity consciously as of yet.
Yeah.
And so I think as the feminine rises, how else could we do it but with the masculine coming online for women?
Yeah.
And diffusing those poles. That's everything that there is as far as archetypes. There's a bipolar energy within. There's an exalted light image, you know, of what we're supposed to do, and then there's a shadow of what actually, you know, we need. Yeah. And so that regret, that becomes regressed, and then we pretend to be bright, shiny objects of light, and then we can't hold the density, you know, that it would take to progress and actually hold on to freedom or hold on to money, you know. And so and that's the issue right now coming on full blown is holding the masculine within the feminine and vice versa.
Yeah. Which to me kind of says, okay, part of this new way is that you can actually have these adjustments, we'll call it, right? You can actually have these adjustments within a balanced state, or what people call 0 point. You don't necessarily, just because you get a little bit wobbled doesn't necessarily mean you're falling out of 0 point. There's a thinking space in 0 point. There's a place where you learn, I'm not going to react. I'm going to respond. I need to respond. It's healthy to feel what I'm feeling. What do I do with this? We're finding our way. So it's like, it's okay to have these fluctuations. You can still be within this central point of balance. And that's new, because we're always like, oh, you're off, so that means you're off the reservation. You know, you triggered, or you projected, or, you know, like you said, you'd love to see, for lack of a better word, an icon break down and then come back and say, oh, I fucked up and now I'm coming back. This is what I learned.
Fucking human. Yeah, because otherwise it's just a bright, shiny object that isn't actual. It's not real. It's not authentic. And so but that's what it is, you know, as far as Hollywood and, you know, and everything that we see in mainstream media and even in spirituality is like, I need you to just be a bright, shiny object, and you can't have any human qualities. And like, you have to, and that is the shadow of the Christ archetype, is perfection and idealism. And that's a facade.
Yeah, and I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm good. I'm good. Everything's fine.
Everything's amazing. Yeah, the full blast Scorpio full moon. Everything's amazing. Not that it's not, but there's things that can always be worked on. You know.
I love this. I love this comment. Jenny Smith always has great comments. She says, it reminds me of song lyrics free from a quote, free from all old stories I've been told. I walk through the valley of my own shadow. Yes.
And I love what you said about the, like, it's the mini deaths.
Yes.
And life. And so it's really an immature ideation of spirituality or life that you're just going to stay up or that you're just going to be done. Because I'll tell you that the whole part of this equation is polarity and ascending and descending. And always, this is life though. Always.
Yes. Like a heartbeat. Yeah, like a heartbeat, like an EKG, you know, and the idea that when we used to look at the EKG, it had this little thin line of I'm okay here, which I can never really hang on to. But really the reality is that that line is the whole space. And we're when we don't separate ourselves from any part of the ups and downs, we're actually strengthening our balance and even widening our 0 point, if you want to put it that way, or increasing our awareness. You know,
because the more we drown in the depths, the more we have a flotation device to ride those. Because you have to, and I like, this was one of my first posts, was really just holding all my shadow aspects under the water and drowning them so that they could come back into the light. And so it's just that we really are needing a flotation device. But I think that comes very easy for me, very fluid in all the energies in my astrology chart too. So just very fluid. And that's kind of what 0 point is because 0 point isn't fluidity necessarily. It's Aquarian, which everyone assumes is a watery because it's aqua, Aquarius, but it's not. It's a bandwidth. So 0 point is very fluid, but these are wavelengths, right?
Yeah.
So we're still riding these energetic waves.
Yeah.
But and that's the fluidity of it. It's like, yeah. So
now, is there, okay, so I know there's a lot of stuff up there that you study and so on. So is there any type of planetary arrangement at this time that speaks to, and I'm not speaking fluffy love and light here, I'm talking about divine union energy, which we all know from us out, you know, copy micro, macro out to the universe. Is there some type of arrangement now, positioning now, that's showing an expansion of the union of these two energies, regardless of the shadow's involvement, you know, and necessity? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So Saturn and Pluto went retrograde. So these are control and power. They go internal. So instead of their energy kind of blaring out, it's an internal retrospective time where it's time to fucking confront the shadow of control and power. And so that's what's going on for the next 4 months. So all the way through the next 2 eclipses, which are July in Cancer, which is the feminine, which is the moon. And so really balancing this. Power is pleasure. That's just what came through. Like, that's really interesting. So like power, hell yeah, power is pleasure. in
a new, I mean, yes, obviously it was even then, but this is a different type of a higher plateau or a higher threshold. And it goes back to the same thing. I almost got it here, all this stuff that you're saying. So it's like these things that were a big part of the old paradigm and our makeup, they weren't all bad things. You know, you don't just give up the power. You don't just give up the idea of control and all this stuff. It's a different means. It's from a higher perspective or a higher function where it can actually expand us. But first, you've got to come to terms with all that. You know, you got to come to terms with not just I was an alpha male, but I wasn't this type of male, for example, but the collective male consciousness was, and I've got to own that too, You know, it's all part of me.
Oh, it is. But it is because you imprinted all those dynamics in your psyche. So it's not that there's something wrong with you. It's that you lived in this society for eons, and you have, like you said, every time that you're shifting hugely, you have past timelines come on and show you, you know, pictures, and I've experienced this as well, just flashes of different timelines coming on, all to collapse at the same time. And so, you know, even if it's a little hiccup of a bump, you're collapsing now timelines from not only this, but past and future timelines. It's a portal, it's a fucking wormhole. So like you're killing off, like, you know, a sperm count of many yous that could, you know, create suffering for you and suffering for other people. And so so it's not personal to you. And I think that's the most important part, is that we depersonalize this, I am that, oh, I'm not that. And like, so that's where people really get triggered, is like, I am not that, or and so they're confronting their ego. And I think that's really what we were talking about earlier, is that at 0 point, when you're actually fully accessing a 5D grid, there is no you that has to come online and confront someone else's willpower or defend a self that doesn't exist. You know, there's no defense mechanism within that says, you can't say that, you can't do that, that's uncomfortable for me. But there are still layers of archetypes that will get triggered out. That's just part of it. That's part of processing the shadow. But when you're in 0 point, even if there's an archetype that wants to come online, you could hold that archetype. You could hold that archetype and still not react.
Yeah.
You could.
Yeah. I really like that. It's almost like you shut up and let the energy do the work. You know?
Right, but that's the whole concept of this new masculine matrix, is that the ego and reality in 3D and 4D is still within the construct of reality itself. Yeah. It's in a mind-made reality, which is not reality. We talked about this. Yeah. Reality, there's no words for it. You're just in a state of awe, you know? And so that's where ego or wetiko can exist, in the construct of self. There's a self here that I need to govern and take a stand against other selves. So all the people that are like me, I'm going to protect. And everyone that's not me, I have to defend against. But once you understand that that's all you, there's nothing to protect, then you're getting into the shit where it's like, oh, I can see myself and everything I fucking hate about this person that I'm about to unleash.
I love what you.
So much you and your shadow, or everything you're fucking saying to everyone else. Yeah.
I love what you said about I am that. So, you know, how can I say I am the I am or I am that? You can't say I am that, but I'm not that. You can't say I am oneness, but I'm not that. You can't do it.
Yeah, I am, but you're not.
Right. And I think that has something to do what we're trying to. You're doing a much better job than I could ever do. But I mean, what we're trying to verbalize, I think that's part of that, is that guru thing. You know, I am that, but you're not, or I am that, but I'm not that, which is the same thing. You know?
Because even if you're in 5D, you still are in 3D and 4D, because you're here. So you're not better than. You still have timelines that want to exist in 3D and 4D, because you have needs that need to be met here in 3D and 4D. And so it's like, oh, I'm in 5D, like I'm better than you. I can't see from your perspective. I don't understand because I'm better than you. I don't have a shadow. Like, no.
Mm. Well,
No.
the one I like is I'm okay, because I did it for years. When I was in the depths, the early depths of my awakening, I was like, I'm okay. I'm good. How you doing? I'm great. I'm fine. Everything's fine. And then I finally realized, I'm like, who am I trying to convince? Them or myself? So that come to Jesus meeting with yourself, is where it's at. Because even if you have someone holding your hand and facilitating you, they can only take you so far. They're not you. And God, this is getting interesting.
And they don't understand your reality either, and they don't necessarily understand your complexities.
Yeah.
Unless you understand the archetypes. But I really think it's important to not assume that anyone else's reality is the same as yours, or that they understand your reality.
Yeah.
Or that they don't, because if you're using that as a defense mechanism, or a superiority complex, or the unawakened people, there's a lot in there for you with talking to people who are just in 3D. There's a lot in there for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love what you say, that it's still there. The 3D, the 4D, the 5D is still there. And I learned for myself early on, about 2014, 2015, because when I started getting online, I was people talking about they're with fairies, they got unicorns in their bedroom, their visitations, there's this, there's that, there's all the human stuff that they've experienced. And I thought, I wrote these words in a poem one time: I respect everyone's reality. You have to. To me, like for my own growth and my own balance, I could not throw shit on anyone's reality or poo-poo it away, because whether it's something I thought, oh my God, they can do that, or something like, oh, I would never do that. All of it's me, and like you said, everybody has their own unique journey, perspective, and experience, and complexities. How can you know me if I don't even know there's unconscious parts of me, that I'm not even aware of? You know what I mean? I don't even know me. How can you know me? Yeah. Good stuff.
I like it when they say they understand themselves very well. I'm like, no, because like I'm not the same person tomorrow. Like there's new shit flying, and it's just remarkable that people go on. Like if we didn't wake up in this lifetime, like we could be holding all this density within our field for fucking hundreds of years, and like it would just go on and repeat itself over and over and over.
Yeah.
And we could be stuck in that density. And so it's so interesting that I like talk to people who are still in 3D, and it's too much for them. The energy is too much. They can't digest it. They can't understand it. I can feel their energy going like, and like it's not time for them. And that's important too, though, because if we woke up all at once, we would die of shock, like horrifying shock.
Yeah. Which gets back to that power thing, which I think maybe that's why we're having these 2 steps up, 1 step back, and vomiting and crying, because the realization of the power that we actually contain is, like you said, reality. There's no words for reality. It really isn't. Yeah. Another thing I know that I went through in the transmission, one of the transmissions I got, which was all about this coming to terms, or I don't know, the bringing in the polarity of the 3D masculine and the higher dimensional masculine. I'm still in your analogy. They showed me, they were like, okay, you're letting all this go. You're almost at a point of total reverence for yourself. This is the masculine now. That part of me, which was over-identifiable part of me. And then they said, let us show you the story. So, because they said, we're proud of you. The universe is proud of you. Da, 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 da. You just don't feel it. And completely. And then they show me the story. And in the shit and the dirt and the grime and the grease of the journey of the masculine, being subjected to all these things imprinted upon his psyche, and to be pulled out of it, it just actually going through it, it showed me the reverence the universe had for that journey, you know, for all the fuck ups and all the shit and all the wars and all the fights and the blood and the guts, you know, not the glory, all the crap. The level of reverence that I was shown did help me to go a little higher, because I thought, oh, wow, you know, I'm looking at this all this time as a human being. Oh my God. But as a higher being, I can look at it from a higher dimensional aspect and go, wow, that was one hell of a mission they signed up for. And you were one of those people. So I'm like, well, okay, I can wear that.
That's intense.
Yeah, it was very interesting. It really was. It was really interesting. It went brother to brother, you know, brother to father, father to son kind of thing. Like, make this piece. And then the next level was, oh, by the way, before you head out the door, we're going to cut your dick off now. Leave it home. I'm like, what? Okay, I'm done with this. You know, let's do it, you know. But as Duncan Alexander said a couple of days ago, he was going through the same thing. And he said, you know, the great thing about it is when these things come, you know, on the other side, there's this huge expansion and they're getting bigger and bigger. It's just, you don't really think about that when you're in the middle of it. Like, oh my God, I know it's really horrible right now, but it's all going to be fine in a minute. It doesn't allow you to disengage from what you've got to go through. There's no shortcut. You got to feel it. You can say it till you're blue in the face. I did this, I've done that, I've done this, I've done that, I'm bound. But until you actually do it, it's just words. You know, it's just words, or it's just a transmission you got that you haven't embodied, right?
And it takes time and care. And I think that's part of the reverence that they were trying to show you, and that I have kind of a complexity with, is that care. Because I didn't necessarily have that growing up, and I didn't imprint that into you know, my energetics. It's just that self-love and self-devotion, and like devotion to what we're called to do and called to witness and called to support, and that takes a great attention span that I think is only in the logical hemisphere of the masculine. I think that's what we're coming into, is this really you know, because masculine is the logos. And so I feel like the reasoning, you know, is deepening into a more more feminine aspects, because even the most exalted and ascended men I've ever seen talk about their feelings, what it feels like, because you really are at a Neptunian level, a fine-tuned musician, listening and feeling into the vibration of the song that the transmission is singing to you. And so when you're feeling into the sixth sense, right, which is outside of object reality, beyond the mind, it's this Neptunian chord of energetics that you can only sense, you know, like it's beyond mind, logos, you know, and it is that sensual aspect of what they just gave me, was that power is pleasure.
Yeah.
And so what if we, that's so amazing though. Like I'm really loving that, because I'm seeing a lot of people coming online as this is a Scorpio full moon, as far as, you know, the power of money and sex being the same energetics. That money and pleasure is so sinful and cast into the shadow, you know, but it's the same energetics as the mirror of relationship and transaction. It's how do we feel about the transaction itself, you know, showing up for what we want, doing the steps that it takes to get there, being held, being witnessed in our soft places. You know, you got to do that with Morgan, and in this intense energy, which is amazing. You know, and so it's really about how do we transact and how are we able to hold the masculine and the feminine in our own field, but also vice versa. How is our masculine and feminine transacting, and that pleasure?
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything beyond that. When you think about it in mythological aspects, that pleasure is power, that fornication, the fact that was it. Like food
Yeah.
and sex
Yeah.
and earth. And what the fuck is beyond that? Like, what else is there? I don't need your fucking paper. Like,
Yeah.
I got trees all over the place. What do I need your paper for?
Yeah.
Like, that's not abundance. And so really connecting with those undertones of pleasure, you know, I think is really going to exalt the masculine. But that's a very vulnerable place. And that's beyond mind, it's beyond reasoning, it's beyond logic. And so
yes, I love you just said that. That syncs with what I just have got, what I'm going through, or what I'm beginning to go through, is as I let all that stuff go, finally, you know, let it go, there was a new power came in that was pleasure, that was requires total openness, total vulnerability, total, you know, total conscious of my feelings, conscious of my sensations, conscious of my body, you know, just and with no programming whatsoever. Just nothing, you know. And I spent 20 minutes on the beach laughing and crying. Laughing and crying. And of course, Morgan, being the practitioner she is, just had a big smile on her face because she knew what was happening. You know? And then, of course, I had my own transmission, which you know was just the way it was presented to me by the universe, which was a very masculine narration or presentation. But then the feminine popped in and said, "Hey, by the way, I'm you." And I'm like, "Okay." I just put my head back. I put my head back. The sun exploded, and I'm like, "Okay." I start crying, start laughing. You know, it's really getting interesting and amazing. Susan Marie made another comment, which really, I'm going to say this just in an effort to maybe help others, because it's really something that I had to come to grips with over the, I don't know, over the last 2-3 months, 4 months. She said, who I was a minute ago is not who I am in this moment. And then she has the humor and the wisdom and says, and now that one's gone too.
now she's done too, yeah.
Yeah. But you know, so what would happen is I knew I was making progress, and a friend or a family member or even Morgan or whoever might say something to me, which was referring to my old self. And I started to go through this, hey, don't say that to me. I'm not that person. And then I got to a point where I thought, wait a minute, I'm not that person. That person would have had to say something. Now I can just take this. It's depersonalized. I'm not gonna carry it with me. I get what they're saying and why they're saying it. I understand it's relevant, and I don't need to hang on to it. And I don't need to explain anything. That's showing me that I'm not that person I was. Not what they were pointing out, but my reaction to it. Right?
That was particularly challenging this last week.
Maybe that's why it came up. Maybe that's why I vomited.
People's triggers were just right there. They're just right there. Anything in the slightest. It was just sitting right at the top. Like it was up to here. Like I've had it up to here with Pluto already. And so, but I think it's really important, you know, that like just I am that. And so whatever energetic equation you offer to whatever it is that you're doing is in essence the care that you're showing, you know, and the energy that you're giving. And so I feel like there's a little bit of resistance in the collective too, softening into those pink sensual energies. And so
That's funny you say that, because whenever this ended, what I went through on the beach with her holding space. Whenever it ended, well, I can tell you what happened. So I closed my eyes when all this was kind of ending, and I just closed my eyes and put my head back. I was leaning against a tree, dead tree or whatever, and so I put my head back. Now the sun was to my left, but I could feel it and see it with my eyes closed, move above my head. Of course, it's orange and gold, you know, the sun yellow, and then all of a sudden it just went magenta pink and it like rained on me, magenta pink. And so I love what you said about the softening into these, or moving into these the softer colors, frequency, vibration. Yeah, and I think that applies to all of us. That's really
well, it's interesting because the masculine actually loves pink. It's what he desires the most. But if he were to be thought of as pink, that wouldn't go over so well necessarily. Like, so he's like, and even for you, it's like, I am you. And so, you know, it's that self-love and that care and that nurture and that energy of pink that we all want to hold on to, you know, for the duration. Like, we really want to hold on to that love, you know. When we find it, we want to hold on to it. And so, you know.
Yeah. So what would you recommend to any of us if there was one thing or one intention or one objective to focus on while this Scorpio full moon energy is in force? For many of us, it's today. I mean, give or take. Is there any one thing that stands out that might be able to assist us for further expansion?
This it's tough because it's in a different house for everyone.
Okay.
I think the only thing that's coming online is that nihilistic tinge of energy that has a romance. It's a new budding romance with power and influence, and it wants to assert itself, but it wants to figure out how.
Yeah.
So I think I already said this, but it's just, so if we're not going to be flimsy and we don't want to have erectile dysfunction, right? How are we just going to bring some pink energy into our assertions? How are we going to love the shit out of our masculine so that we can bring some pink energy into our love of money? And instead, I think part of what this energy is about is the ideation of power, which is the ideation of money, and what that energetic signature holds: power, influence. But what is that really? Because we don't actually want that, because that feels overwhelming. It feels like dark mother. It feels like chaos. We can't actually hold that within our domicile, within our field. What we can hold is pink, you know, softening of our reasoning, you know, an allowing of our resources to come in as we protrude out into the world and reason effectively about what we choose and assert ourselves, you know, to have. Like, we get to decide now. So now that we have a rebirthing of our power, you know, and the edge of our soul, our sword is on the tip top edge of, you know, it's just crystallizing through us. It's like, well, how can I soften those reasonings so it's easy to hold him?
Yeah.
Easy, because the masculine is about those grid lines. It's about 3D reality. It's about physical reality. The fact that we want to hold on to this power, we want to hold on to this money, we want to hold on to this love. So how do we soften the energetics of money, dominance, power into a pink energy that we could hold forever? Because pink's really easy.
That's a good meditation. I don't know how to do it specifically, but I think what I'm going to do is, especially on this thing you're talking about with the association of money. It's like money's not a dirty word, you know. It's like that's part of that power that we want to reassert, but not that way. This with this pink program or whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to carry the image of in my thoughts, you know, in my third eye of this magenta, you know, as I go forth with whatever ideas, whatever I'm working on, I can see that happening. That's very helpful to me because you don't associate magenta, you don't associate the pink with the masculine, but you say that that's what he loves, and I'm not going to argue with you, even though I've never thought about it. It makes sense. What is it? What is it in the, if you put it in colors, what is it in the spectrum of colors of the masculine paradigm that we carried forward, template that we have carried with us? It did not have pink in it. So what only makes sense is I've gotten from the universe over and over, you're not going to get there by anything you've done before. You've got to add frequencies to it to expand it in its vibration. You know, that just makes total sense to me.
Yeah, because the energetics of it are fucking, it's hard. It's not something, because I've contemplated, you know, writing a book, you know, creating a platform, not like yours all fucking day every day, but like a similar YouTube channel, you know, and like, so do I really want, you know, power? Do I really want money or the energetics that go along with that? I don't. What I actually want is a life, a tangible life for me and my kids to hold on to for a really long time.
Yeah.
Like I don't want anything that goes along with a profession of being famous or anything that, you know, goes along with that. I'm not interested in any of that. Like I want a life that is my own creation. Like I want acreage, I want a farm, I want a pool. Those are all very simple things. Those are very simple pleasures. That's not asking too much. I'm not a fucking showboat because I have an idea to have a pool in my backyard for my kids. You know, like these are tangible things that are very easy and pleasurable to sustain. And so I think that's more of a longevity than like a masculine, oh my God, I you know, I'm so powerful. And you can't hold on to that because there's a human underneath that bullshit. So yeah, there's a human need and desire and all the things that go along underneath the facade.
Morgan's the masculine energy thought it was to push into the feminine, but he was only ever meant to meet her there. Yeah, this, you know, this is really getting interesting. Okay, so where, just to reiterate for those, the many people who may not be familiar with you, where can we find you? Still on Facebook, message you directly, Allison Engel, your personal page, and you got a website forthcoming and another book, right?
Yeah, my book, I am getting an editor and then we'll be going forward. I'm simplifying my cover art. It was very complex before, but it was going to be amazing, but it was very complex. So simplifying it, simplifying.
And in the types of readings and sessions you do, because I know it's not just singular, there's different levels, because I saw the ad the other day too. I saw a post the other day where you were breaking it down. Can you just kind of go over that real quick?
So I developed a counseling system that goes into anything that's arising, right, as a problem in your experience is digestible as it goes back to an archetypal complex or, you know, a pattern that's repeating within your subconscious. So the system that I developed goes and starts a dialogue with the archetype. And so in a session, we're able to heal it and shift it. And so that is the counseling system that I created. But after that, you're kind of activated into the field of processing your subconscious easier, right? It gets easier, right, Todd? And so after that, you just process a lot easier. And then we do ongoing counseling and astrology, because with your chart, I can reiterate to you what you're experiencing as the planets shift. And so that is very beneficial for you to have that mirror to your experience with your birth chart. Because I understand the archetypal complexes within the subconscious, but also within the cosmos and how they actually make up our psyche. And so with that knowledge, I'm in a pretty good spot to help you. And so even with one astrology chart reading, which is usually the life's purpose, I can tell what and align you to what you're intended to do in this lifetime, what the universe will have for you in this lifetime. And so that's a really powerful activation point as you bring it out of your subconscious and you're just validated at the depth of your being. You're just like, yes. And so that's
Very
really cool.
And then people can message you on Messenger to set up a session or find out. Okay.
Yep,
Perfect.
I'm running a sale this weekend for 33% off everything. Even if you buy a huge package, I'm honoring that sale. So 4 sessions is only $222. So that's 4 hours.
Oh, that's cool. It's like $55 an hour. That's not bad at all.
Yeah.
That's not bad at all. Okay. Well, I absolutely enjoy and love and appreciate you. You expand my awareness, and I feel it's an honor for us, Morgan and I, Soulogy, and all of us here at Soulogy, to help expand awareness for what you're doing. And I'd love to keep doing it. And see you next week or whenever the next one is.
All right. Bye, guys. Thanks for having me.
Best to you and your kids. You take care.